The Pope announced his resignation this morning to the astonishment of the entire world, and it would appear also even his own aides in Rome weren't expecting this or weren't aware of this. And I know that church sources here, when the news broke on the wires, began to check with colleagues in Rome. The Vatican is closed today because of the feast of Our Lady of Lourdes, and even the people that they contact within the Vatican hadn't known about it. So to say that it's a shock is an understatement in itself. It's the first time in 598 years that a pope has resigned. The previous pope to do so was Gregory XII, who resigned in 1415. Before him there was Benedict as well, believe it or not, Benedict IX, who resigned in 1045. It's a highly unusual event in the life of the Church, as you can tell from those figures alone. There was a lot of speculation that Pope John Paul would resign for health reasons, which is why Benedict is resigning, by the way. Particularly towards the end of the reign, when the Parkinson's had really set in and he was clearly seen to be physically infirm, but he didn't do so. It is a surprise that of all men Benedict would stand down, because he's such a traditionalist and such an orthodox man. Like he was the steel hand in the John Paul glove of the John Paul II papacy, the man, the orthodox man, the man who stuck by the rules and by the tradition of the Church, even to the degree, as some would see it, of rowing back in many of the reforms of Vatican II, certainly rowing back in the spirit of Vatican II. And I think that that's how he will be remembered when he does stand down as Pope. It is a remarkable event. I was at a press conference this morning when the news broke, being given by the Bishop of Elphin, Christopher Jones, to do with Accord, the Catholic Church marriage agency, which counsels people who are having marriage difficulty. And he wasn't aware, nor were his spokespeople aware. And we were at the statue of St. Valentine, and it was a rather incongruous situation, or appeared to be. But anyhow, so it has been confirmed since the statement, the Pope's formal resignation statement itself has been released, which you read at a consistory this morning in the Vatican, and his aides are described, they didn't know, they are described as incredulous. So we're into a whole new territory, unprecedented area. He stands down on the 28th of February, the end of this month, and then there'll be a conclave, I'm sure very shortly afterwards, the details have to be worked out, to elect his successor. He was elected in April 2005. Many would have seen it as a continuation of the papacy of John Paul, which is one of the longest in the history of the Church. If anything, he was more conservative than John Paul. He reached out to the Pius VI Society, the Lefebvrites. He was very strong on the whole issue of women priesthood again, much more so than John Paul had been, who was also strong on that issue too as well. Here in Ireland, of course, we will recall him, or his period as Pope, for the letter he sent to Irish Catholics in March 2010, following the Murphy report the previous November, which was quite extensive, quite lengthy, very critical of the Church leadership, sympathetic to people who have been abused, and put in place, or announced basically, the apostolic visitations to the Irish Church, which took place subsequently, and were seen as an investigation of the Church, and essentially of its orthodoxy, which surprised a lot of people. These reports weren't published. A summary of them was published last year, a 7-page summary of 7 reports. One of them was leaked to us last June, the one in the Irish College in Rome, conducted by the Cardinal Archbishop of New York, Timothy Dolan, which is quite a savage piece of work, in which he basically removed 3 of the 4 staff there. The 4th resigned as well, 4 Irish priests, because they weren't orthodox enough. And the whole emphasis in Benedict's letter, following the abuse, the Murphy report, and indeed the apostolic visitations, seemed to suggest that the problem in the Irish Church, which led to this abuse, was that it wasn't orthodox enough, it wasn't traditional enough, which very few people will accept. His papacy has been, I wouldn't say terribly popular, except with the right-wing element of the Catholic Church. He wrote some very nice encyclicals, particularly the first one on Jesus of Nazareth, which was very, very well received. His more recent books have been somewhat controversial, particularly the one before Christmas of this year, where some people suggested that when he said there were no animals in the crib, that he was trying to get rid of sort of one of the great old traditions that's been there since St. Francis. But that's a minor matter. The man is a powerful intellect, regarded as the greatest theologian, the most foremost theologian to become Pope, certainly in modern times. His legacy is mixed. He leaves a church that is barely hanging on by its fingernails in the developed world. Meanwhile, it's growing very rapidly in the developing world. And we'll have to see what history to say about him. It's a bit too premature to pronounce just yet, I feel.